I never imagined I was be sitting in this position because I spent most of my career in traditional finance as a financial services regulator. So I never imagined, but I'm always very supportive of new innovative areas, right? So be it in terms of the payment space, blockchain space, etc.
You're watching CoinDesk Spotlight. I am Jen Sanasi, and it is my pleasure to bring you into this candid discussion with Binance CEO Richard Teng. Richard, welcome to CoinDesk Spotlight.
Thanks for having me, Jen. It's great to be on the show.
Of course. Now, on Spotlight, we really want to dig deep into the journeys of the people who are really pioneering this space. You've been in the position at Binance for, I think, about 10 months now, right?
Yes, indeed. For 10 months.
Let's reflect on the last 10 months. What's been the biggest win for you, I guess?
Well, I would say, firstly, I'm very grateful and honored that I'm invited to take up the post by CZ and the rest of the co-founders on that front. So it's indeed a privilege to lead the largest crypto exchange globally. Yeah, it's been an exciting 10 months. When I stepped into this role about 10 months ago, I make it my commitment. Firstly, I make 3 commitments, right? So the first one is to our users. Second is to regulators around the world. And thirdly, to really support and work with partners to support a very vibrant blockchain ecosystem around the world. So on each of those fronts, we have been working very tirelessly. Just on the user front, we have hit today 220 million users globally, which is a great result. On the regulatory front, globally, we are very happy to continue to work with global regulators to advance crypto, blockchain. One of our subsidiary, Toko Crypto, just secured one of the first license in Indonesia today. I think we make that announcement today. We have also secured regulatory approval recently in India. We announced earlier in Kazakhstan, in Thailand, in Dubai during the earlier part of this year. So we continue to work very closely with global regulators to advance blockchain, to advance crypto, and to really support our users wherever they may be in terms of their crypto journey. And thirdly, this industry is still very nascent in terms of the stage of development, right? So about 5 to 6% crypto adoption globally. We are still very early. So we want to work with partners around the world to really support the creation of a very vibrant ecosystem, because the rising tide will float all boats.
Richard, you mentioned working with users and regulators. When you took the job, Binance was in a precarious situation, right? It had agreed to pay a massive fine of over $4 billion. I think that it was the largest that the U.S. Treasury has ever, the largest fine the U.S. Treasury has ever received. And it seems like a tough time for a CEO to be entering a business. And I've always wanted to ask you, why did you take the job? It seems like a really uphill battle that you kind of threw yourself into.
Well, so it is a tough position, right? Not only because of the US settlement, but running such a dynamic and innovative organization is always going to be challenging. But I'm really very, very privileged to be supported by a team of very capable leaders in Binance, right? So it's not a one-man show. It is really a team effort. And other than the leadership team, we have very dedicated staff. We're adding to that staff. We have added about 1,000 people this year, right? So our headcount strength now is about 5,200. We're going to add another 1,600 people before the end of the year, if not more. So we continue to add to our talent pool to really drive our mission, which is to support the freedom of money. Having said what you said, actually is not as tough as many believe, right? Because the foundation of the company is extremely strong. The consistency, the user focus culture of the company has been built, and the user confidence in us has been built over the course of 7 years, right? It's not overnight. It's a consistency of our actions to our users in terms of protecting them, supporting them in their journey, giving them the best products. And that is a result of many, many years of hard work accumulating to what we are and who we are today, right? So it is a very strong platform.
ask a lot of CEOs and founders this, but what's your biggest fear? It sounds like you're really optimistic about the future. It sounds like you came into a company that had a solid foundation despite what it may have looked like from the outside with dealing with various different regulators around the world. What continues to keep you up at night as you head into your second year as CEO?
I'm bullish for the future. So I think many people look at 1 year back, but let's cast our perspective much longer. So I got involved in crypto right about 2017, right? Just before Binance was established in July 2017. I got to know crypto about March of 2017, right? So if I bring everybody back to that time, those are even earlier stage, right? And I got to know crypto in the US at a conference in Boca Raton that I attend on a yearly basis. It's a Futures Industry Association event. And at that particular conference, I noticed a lot of crypto boys coming through, and that got me intrigued. And the more I got to know about this space, the more I believe that this is going to be the future of finance. So I started to look at it, and I was the CEO of Abu Dhabi Global Market then, which is a regulator. So we became one of the first in the world to roll out a very comprehensive framework to regulate crypto, because it's my firm belief that for crypto to go mainstream, and those are still very early days, to go mainstream, you need two dimensions to come into play. Firstly, you need clarity of rules by regulators. And if you look back at 2017, very few regulators in the world were looking into this space. Many believe that it's a passing fad, it will go away, it's insignificant, it's not systemic. So are the institutions. And my second hypothesis is that once you have clear rules and regulations, then you can bring in the institutional investors. And that is a needed dimension for this space to really become mainstream, right? So those were very early days, and institutional investors are not in. Crypto is the only asset class that has gone the reverse direction, right? So you look at most traditional asset classes, securities, bond, commodities, they go from institutions to corporates to retail. Crypto was embraced by retail first, and for the longest time, corporates and institutions are not in this space. 2024 has been a landmark year because these two dimensions that I mentioned has come to pass. Firstly, we are getting a lot more regulatory clarity around the world today, including in the US with the approval of the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF. And around the world, today about 1/3 of global regulators are regulating this space, right? Compared to 2017, where almost zero are regulating this space. So we are at a very different juncture now. If you look at the institutions, the top 100 financial institutions around the world today, all have a crypto agenda. Even compared to 2 years ago, there's a marked difference, right? When Larry Finn of the world come out to say he has changed from a crypto skeptic to a crypto believer, I think that is a landmark shift when the largest asset manager in the world has made that shift. So I continue to be very bullish. And I do think that from now on, the pace of adoption will only increase. Just taking Binance, right? So we have 220 million users today. Our first 100 million users took us 5 years to achieve. The next 100 million users took us approximately 2 years. And the third 100 million, I think, will be even faster, right? So you can see the pace of adoption becoming very rapid going forward. So we are looking forward to supporting the next billion users coming into crypto.
You said you got into the space in 2017. That's also when I got into the space. I got into it because I was very interested in the creator economy and what blockchain could enable for creators, given what I do for a living. Take me back to 2017. What was the thing that really hooked you? And did you think you would be sitting in this position when you were just starting to learn about the impact crypto could have on the financial industry?
No, I mean, I never imagined I was be sitting in this position because I spent most of my career in traditional finance, as a financial services regulator. Started off in the Central Bank of Singapore, then became Chief Regulatory Officer of Singapore Exchange, and then headhunted to lead Abu Dhabi Global Market, which is an international financial center. So I never imagined, but I'm always very supportive of new innovative areas, right? So be it in terms of the payment space, blockchain space, etc. So I've always been one of those people that are very, very supportive of new areas of growth. People ask me, isn't it challenging for a regulator to become driving a business? I said that, I'm a very business-minded regulator in that sense that I always believe that regulations cannot be one-dimensional. I mean, if you just focus on the risk aspect without looking at how rules and regulations can minimize the risk but support the growth of not only the sector but the entire economy, you're missing a much bigger picture, because rules and regulations are there to mitigate risk. Ultimately, the objective is to support growth, right? So how do you balance these two dimensions is extremely important. So I never imagined I'll be here, but I'm very grateful to be driving this very important franchise going forward.
Richard, we need more regulators to think like you. Although they might hear you saying this and think that you're the CEO of a crypto company, so maybe your mind has changed. But if only, I think everyone watching this interview would say, if only we could have maybe the SEC think that it's not a one-dimensional issue.
No, I always, okay, so when I told you I got to know crypto in 2017, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right about 2017, even before we started regulating crypto, I sort of opened 2 crypto accounts to start trading, to understand what the product is about, what's the flow about, what's on-chain, etc. Because I never believe in not understanding a product and trying to regulate it. Mm-hmm. Because you're just talking about theory and hypothesis in most instances. It's just like you're regulating a bank without a bank account, and you don't have a bank account, you don't know the customer experience, what the customer go through, etc. So I don't think that's authentic. So I always urge, even in the very early days when I'm still a regulator, for my fellow regulators then that were starting to regulate this space, I said, have you opened an account to really understand what this product class is about? If not, go and do it. Then you can have a deeper appreciation of this asset class and how it really transformed the life of so many people.
When you told people to go and open an account, did they listen to you?
I don't think many do. I don't think many did, but I think some have. And hopefully, I think that, make their journey even more meaningful, right? In terms of regulating crypto, because they have a deeper understanding. They have more empathy of this asset class. They have a good understanding of user needs, etc. And I do think that they will make them a more rounded regulator in many sense.
Just letting our audience know, in case they didn't know, you didn't join Binance as the CEO. You joined as, I believe, Binance Singapore CEO. You held various different roles in the organization before you took this one. When you made the decision to join Binance, I think back to that time, I used to describe what Binance was going through with regulators as almost like a regulatory whack-a-mole. No matter what it seemed like the company was trying to do to get regulatory clarity, to get the proper licenses, it seemed to continue to face challenges and hurdles with regulators. When you talked about this with your TradFi network, with your regulatory network, what was the reaction? Did people think that you were kind of crazy to join this company?
When I first joined the company, many people wish me good luck.
Good luck and see you never.
No, I think we still remain as good friends. So, but I mean, the truth is, it's not just a Binance journey. It's a crypto journey, right? It's very misunderstood, the crypto journey. So I mentioned 2017, almost no regulators are regulating this. So the regulatory landscape only started to shift in the last 3 years, when more and more regulators start to get involved. But still, many do not have enough resources to really understand this. Actually, we, Binance as an organization, we spend a lot of time, energy, sort of working with policymakers, legislators, law enforcement agencies to highlight to them and to educate them the beauty of crypto, right? Crypto as a technology, how is it a traceable technology, and how can you use it to detect and deter things like financial crimes, right? So it's often misunderstood. If you look at the traditional media, they always make crypto out as this big bad thing that is always associated with money laundering. But if you look at money laundering around the world, less than 0.02% is in crypto. I mean, most of it takes place in the traditional fiat arena, right? So even the Central Bank of Singapore has come out to say that in Singapore, most of the money laundering takes place through banks and other other traditional networks. So because I mean, if you have 100 million, if you start distributing them in cash, it's very difficult to trace them. But in crypto, as you know, it's a traceable technology. You can trace where the money goes through. Even if you try to make use of tumblers and mixers, ultimately those can be tracked in different ways, right? So we highlight to them the beauty of this, and is to really correct the perception that's always portrayed wrongly that crypto is used for many of these things, right? When it is a technology that is far superior to what we have in the traditional space.
You know, a handful of journalists sat down with you a few weeks ago now, and in that meeting, we spoke about how we get clear regulation that spans borders. And something you said that stuck with me was, we really need a global regulatory force. We need all jurisdictions to align on the same thing. And I spent some time studying this. I did my master's in law not long ago. My focus was on innovation and tech. And I came up with a similar solution and I wrote a paper about it. But from a regulatory perspective, in your experience as a regulator, how possible is that? Like, what needs to happen to get global regulators on the same page? It feels impossible when we see what's happening in different jurisdictions around the world.
Well, there needs to be a lot of political will behind this. It is going to be extremely tough, right? So if you look at the landscape today, there in any single country, more often than not, you have multiple agencies. So you have a regulator in charge of the banking sector, a regulator in charge of the security sector, another in charge of insurance, commodities, and so on. So firstly, you have to get agreement, which is the dominant regulator. They're supposed to look after and regulate crypto. And depending on the regulator, normally they have a preference, right? So if you talk to the banking regulator, they'll say that this is a payment token. If you talk to the securities regulator, they say this is a security. Commodities regulator, they say it's a commodity. So which is why today the landscape is very challenging, right? So I told you we have 19 regulatory approval around the world, making us the most regulated exchange around the world. But having said that, it's challenging because there's no harmonized rules. Unlike in the banking space, in the securities, asset management space, there are harmonized rules across the world. So if you comply with one set of rules, it pretty much is similar to other set of rules in other parts of the world. And crypto is so different because some parts of the world regulate as a commodity. And commodities rules are very different from securities rules. And that is very different from payment rules, right? So in Singapore, it's considered a digital payment token, right? So really depending on which part of the world you are in, to operationalize that, you have to understand the local rules and requirements, which are different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. You have to change your operations, change your compliance setup and processes to comply with each of the requirement very differently. And in some jurisdiction, they have gone a different path to designate, given the specific characteristics of this asset class, to designate it as a virtual asset or digital asset, as they call it. So it really depends. But that is on all our wish lists. If there's a single standardized definition of what it is and how best to regulate this, it's so much better for everybody. It's so much better for players like ourselves that allow us for global deployment. It's much better for users because users know what sort of standardized provision, protection they can be accorded to in terms of security, etc., etc. And we are working around the world to hopefully over time see a convergence towards a standardized set of rules.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier, and I think we all know it's still very early in the space. So it sounds like something that will take more time, more education. We're still at the very beginning of the road. But one of the challenges that you're overcoming, when you reflect on the last year, there's been so much happening at Binance. I mean, wins and challenges. What's been the biggest challenge or something that you're still I guess, when you think about it, coming to terms with or dealing with?
Well, I would say that, crypto is an industry that's so dynamic that every day bring new challenges. So I wouldn't qualify anyone as the biggest challenge, but every day bring new challenges. But it's how do we overcome challenges on a day by day basis, right? How do we focus on growth? How do we focus on sustainable growth, right? And we do that through various means, right? Continue to enhance on our product. In the last year alone, we have enhanced a lot of different things, right? From things like rolling out copy trading, enhancing our Web3 wallet, to introducing things like super earn products, to mega draw, to for our VIP clients, enhancing our VIP client program, introducing tripartite agreement. So we continue to enhance our product and service offering to make sure that we have the best in class platform to serve our users. We invest a lot into compliance. Last year, I mentioned our compliance spend is about 213 million US dollars. Compared to previous year, it's 158 million.
Is that on hiring compliance staff? Is that on paying fines? Like, what's the breakdown there?
No, it's not paying fines. It's like
Okay.
the compliance,
Just compliance.
the money spent on compliance program. And this year will continue to increase, right? So our compliance headcount stands northwards of about 500 and above. And we're going to add another 160, 170 more by end of the year. So we continue to focus a lot on compliance. We have the ability to continue to invest very heavily into this space. And given that the direction of travel is one that's much more compliant in nature going forward, is very important. But we intend to make this into a competitive advantage because we have the resources to invest quite heavily into this space. Right? So I think that's the second area. Third area is security. I think security is extremely important in crypto. The protection of user asset, the security of the platform. You probably have read today that one of the largest Indonesian exchange, Indodex, has been hacked for about, I believe, 22 million, right? So prior to this, you have Razarex, which is one of the Indian exchange, being hacked, and then you have BTC. So these hacking episodes happen throughout the world on DeFi space, on centralized exchange space. So security is extremely important. We continue to invest in the best and the brightest and the best platform there is to make sure that our users' assets are protected, we are adequately protected, and we spare no efforts on that front. We actually do way beyond what many regulators require. So even in terms of helping our clients, right? So this year alone, we help our clients avoid scams and fraud losses amounting to about 2.4 billion, right? So again, and for money that's lost through some of the rug pull scams, we work with law enforcement agencies and help users recover about 73 million this year. So we work on all these efforts as part of user protection. And of course, our SAFU fund, which we set aside to make sure that users are protected. That's more than 1 billion in terms of assets in there. And that's to make sure that users are actually adequately protected in the event there's any untoward security issue on our platform. So we continue to focus a lot on all these areas, and of course, working with global regulators in terms of advancing deployment.
Now, I have to ask you, as you continue to forge ahead, it sounds like you and the rest of the organization are very optimistic. You're meeting regulatory requirements, really taking the company to the next level. There's this really terrible situation that's happening alongside all of this, and that's that Tigran Gambarian is still in Nigeria. I know that we continue to get updates in the news every day, but on a personal level, from you, like how does that make you feel that he's stuck there? The company's continuing to truck along, and how do you deal with that as the CEO?
We are really working tirelessly around the clock to find different means to make sure that we get Tigran home safely to his family and friends, and that remains a top priority for us. So we have worked through various means and avenue. We have also appealed directly to the Nigerian government to release him on humanitarian grounds. As you know, Tigran is in pain. He has herniated disc, and he can barely walk. We also appeal to the U.S. government. He is an American citizen, right? Appeal to the U.S. government to designate him as unlawfully detained, right? There's no reason to detain him. We have reached out to the Nigerian government. I mean, if there are outstanding issues, we are happy to work through the outstanding issues as we have worked through with other governments, right? Be it in Thailand, be it in US, India, we have worked and solved all those issues with governments. So we are compliant, we'll work through all the issues. There's really no need to hold Tigran in that regard, right? So we continue to appeal to good senses on humanitarian ground for Tigran to be released and let him go home, let him get the requisite care that he needs and help that he needs to nurse him back to health.
And has the U.S. government been responsive?
Well, we can't really divulge our dealings with the U.S. government, but we are working through the different channels to highlight this important issue, and hopefully we can get Tigran enough help to get him home as soon as possible.
Yeah, it seems like it's just not an ideal situation for anyone. So I also hope that Tigran can get home safely and that his health can recover. As we wrap up our chat now, if you weren't in this industry, in a parallel universe, and you weren't working in crypto or finance or as a regulator, what would you be doing?
I have a very weird. When I first started off my career, I was supposed to be a tax advisor. So I didn't.
Advisor?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be a tax advisor. I mean, I was trained in accounting. I took keen interest into taxation for some strange reason at that point in time, and I was strangely very partial towards taxation. I mean, it's solving how do you come into proper tax planning was something that really intrigues me. Right? So who knows if I didn't start a career with the Central Bank of Singapore then and get into banking, I could be doing tax advisory for all you know.
Maybe I'll call on you because when I hear about taxes, I just get anxiety.
Most of us do. Most of us do. Yes.
And okay, on that note, then, what do you do for fun when you're not working? I know life is not all about work.
Well, I try to exercise. I exercise. I watch films on Netflix. I read. I listen to music. I do a bunch of things that other ordinary folks do. Right. So nothing out of. I mean, I'm a pretty boring person, so I don't have many exciting spots. So I do try to get some workout on a daily basis.
Yeah. This is not the first time I've heard you mention Netflix. Are you binging anything right now?
Let me see. Have I just finished binging anything? I am watching one of the Korean drama now. It's called The Whirlwind. It's a political show. So I'm halfway through it. I'm not binging. I try to watch if I have time. Yeah.
Yeah, I get you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put those words into your mouth. And I have to say, the Korean dramas they're always spectacular.
Yeah, I was just in Korea last week, and that's why I told them. I said, they are very innovative in terms of their drama. I mean, they can think of many different genres, so it is quite interesting.
Richard, thank you so much for joining CoinDesk Spotlight, and we hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.